eliminate the BS, build awareness, change perception, expand the market, and help the best property management entrepreneurs win. I'm your host, property management growth expert, Jason Hull, the founder and CEO of DoorGrow. Now, let's get into the show. And my guest today is, let's see, I'm going to unmute your mic here. I'm trying to unmute you. All right. There you go. All right. I don't think things are so. All right. So, Ben Doherty is my guest of Sunroom. Ben, welcome to the DoorGrow Show.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
Good to have you. So, Ben, why don't we start by you giving us a little bit of your background, qualify yourself. You've done some cool stuff, and I'm in the market where you did some of this cool stuff. We just realized in the green room that we're back practically neighbors in the Austin market. He's downtown and I'm up in Round Rock. So, Ben, tell us a little bit about your background and how you kind of got into the, I guess, technology space. So.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, I mean, me and my co-founder, Zach, we started working on Sunroom in right around 2017. And, the way that we had originally had the idea was, just being a renter for a decade, and having a lot of interesting experiences trying to look for a place to lease. But prior to starting Sunroom, Zach and I had started a company called Favor Delivery, which is a small little delivery company here in Texas that grew to become the market leader in delivery. And we sold to HEB in early 2018.
And for people that aren't familiar with HEB, because I moved from California just before the pandemic. And because I wanted to get away from California and the taxes and its poor political culture. But anyway, so I moved here to Austin, and HEB was all over the place. I'm like, what a weird name. What is this place? And but it's one of the America's top grocery chains. It's consistently rated as one of the biggest and the best. So for those that are not in Texas, they are probably not familiar with HEB, but HEB is one of the leading grocery stores and it dominates everything.
Yeah,
I'm sure in grocery sales it beats out Walmart, it beats out any of the stuff that I'd heard about before, and I'd never heard of HEB. So, and
yeah,
I've used this delivery service.
Yeah, HEB is an impressive company, and the crazy thing is they've been around for 115 years.
Wow.
They are the top employer in Texas. And when they acquired us, it was the only acquisition they've ever had in their history as a company.
Wow.
And even crazier than that, when we combined workforces, at the time, we had the largest workforce of independent contractors. Right, we grew to, now they're at 100,000 delivery drivers in Texas.
Wow.
And HEB had a similar amount of employees. So when we combined workforces, it just became, this this really massive workforce supporting grocery and delivery of all food. So yeah, it was a cool marriage that we had there.
Very cool. Yeah, very cool. So, well, that's interesting history. So I've seen the favorite name when I'm doing delivery from HEB. So I was like, what's this relationship? So
yeah, so I
cool.
can elaborate a little bit more too about, how we picked Sunroom. So, we had, like I said, my co-founder Zach and I, we're actually best friends from high school. And so we go way back. Totally respect any and all entrepreneurs. I think what you were saying about, you wanting to support property manager entrepreneurs. I think it's a good mission because, I just tip my hat off to any entrepreneurs who get any businesses working, because we definitely know how hard that is. But anyways, our journey towards Sunroom was, just having a lot of I would call interesting experience as a renter. And then we started calling, once we were interested in the rental space, we started making a lot of phone calls to different rental listings, and we started asking the agents and property managers, hey, why are you doing this, why are you doing these leases? And the same, we kept hearing the same thing, which is like, oh well, I don't really want to be doing this lease, I'm just doing this lease because I'm helping this investor client buy more homes, and so now I'm looped into renting this place. And every once in a while you'd come across a property manager who really loved leasing, but a lot of the property managers we talked to too would be like, yeah, I'm really focused on growing my door count, and but leasing is just something we have to do to get more properties in the door. And so Zach and I saw that as an opportunity of like, wow, well, no wonder why the experience is not that great for renters. A lot of the folks who are doing these leasing are not that excited about doing it. And so then that's how we started working on Sunroom.
Cool. So let's talk about then what, you talked about the problem that you saw in the marketplace, and experience wasn't super good, but a lot of owners and maybe even property managers aren't even super excited about taking care of the tenant experience. It's not like their highest priority. They're like, I want to get more doors. I want to have more properties managed. So they're like, what's my competitive advantage? So when they're picking tools and software, they're trying to figure out, how do I get some sort of leg up on the competition, so to speak, or how can this lower my operational cost, and these kind of things. Because one of the biggest time sucks for a property management company is dealing with prospective tenants. These are not people that are paying them, and they call them the most, right? And so this is like the garbage of phone calls. I've heard one of my guests call it, So tell me about, what does Sunroom do, and how does it do it, and what's the benefit?
Yeah, sure. So what we do is we partner with property management companies and become their leasing arm. So if you're a newer property management company, you're focused on growing doors, and you just mainly want to focus on that, right? One of the most important things is you got to get leasing right. If you don't get leasing right, you're not gonna lease the doors quickly, which then your owner investors are not going to be happy about that. And also also I would argue equally as important is that renter does have a great experience, because that is really the beginning of your relationship with them. And what we've noticed of working with a lot of different property managers is that when the renter goes into the home and they're really happy with their experience, that led up to that point, they're a lot more, how do I put this, like, they're a lot more quiet when they get into the home, right? They're just happy overall, which is going to reduce your maintenance requests, and honestly going to make it more likely that they renew the next year, right? Because that is just really I would just say first impressions are everything in life a lot of times, and so I think leasing really is that first impression for that property manager. So to come back around to what we do. We partner with the property management companies and make it so that they don't even need to have any leasing agents on staff. And we can really do the entire process of getting the home leased. But at the same time, we give the property manager sort of the power over, key decisions, right? Like things like actually approving the applications, that's still going to be, up to the property manager to make sure they choose the right applicant. And if there's, obviously if they want to use their lease that they prefer, there's all different ways that we allow them to customize what they want their leasing experience to be like. But at the end of the day, we're really doing the legwork for them. And, we have a combination of people and tech to do that.
Got it. So this combination of people and tech, are you able to do this in every market, or is this like a local thing that needs to be done locally?
Yeah, great question. So we started out just doing this in Austin, and have partnered with several different property managers here in town. But now we're expanding across the U.S. And so I believe we're up to 7 different markets at the moment, but pretty rapidly expanding to cover more markets.
Got it. What's the biggest limitation in expansion for those that you don't cover yet?
Well, we call ourselves a leasing only brokerage. So we're actually a real estate brokerage in each of these states. And so,
Got it.
that's definitely that's a blocker to getting set up in a lot of these places, is actually, establishing our brokerage in each one of these states.
Got it. Okay, cool. So, yeah, I think a lot of property managers, they're aware of certain tools like Mojo and Tenant Turner and Rently
Yep.
and Knock Rentals and uh, Turbo Tenant. So
Yep.
how does Sunroom sort of differentiate from all these tools and these systems that are already out there?
Yeah. So, I mean, some of those systems and tools you mentioned, I do think those, they do improve the renter experience. And at the same time, they do make it make it so that it's a little less work for the property manager to lease those properties. But at the end of the day, if you're a property management owner, you're still going to need a leasing agent on your team, or you're going to have to overextend the property manager that you have, in order to utilize those tools, right? Sunroom just kind of takes it the next step, where we have similar tools and systems. Obviously I'm biased, but I would argue they're better than those. But
You should
we take
argue
it
that. Yeah.
we take it a step further, where you don't even really need to have a leasing agent on staff in order to really execute everything you need to do for leasing. Whereas all these other tools or systems, they're definitely completely reliant on still having somebody there behind the scenes, kind of catching the errors or all the holes in those systems. And if anybody has tried to you know integrate those different systems and tools, what they'll find is that they were built they were built in a way that they had a focused goal. And so there's a lot of different holes in that system. I'm sure as operators see that, and I think that's the big difference with what we're building, is that what we build, we actually use to operate. And so we're able to kind of see all the different gaps and holes that those systems leave, and really our system and our between our systems and our team, we're able to kind of fill in the gaps that those systems leave out.
All right. So I think people listening by now are like, the wheels are turning a little bit and they're like, okay, how does this actually play out? So could you walk us through step by step how this process sort of works with the property manager and the tenant from beginning to finish?
Yeah, sure. So it usually starts within one of the property managers' property management softwares, right? So, we see commonly property managers are using AppFolio or Buildium. So
Mhm.
let's just use AppFolio for example. So you have a property manager on your team. You see that you have a home where the renter didn't renew, and so it's a property that you're gonna need to get leased. At that moment, you would, if you were partnered with us, you would open up the Sunroom portal, and we would already essentially have that home synced within our system, because we're able to really, pull data from AppFolio and the Buildiums of the world. From there, they just really submit the property to us and say, "Hey, this home's coming up for lease." We would normally already have all of their settings, like as a part of our onboarding. We're going to get them all set up in our system. So things like knowing what their tenant criteria is, things like knowing when is this home actually available, when would you like us to touch the property. And then as soon as they submit the property to us, we're getting these property. We actually will go out and touch the property, so we have boots on the ground. Those boots on the ground are going to get professional photography. They're going to set up a self-showing lock system if that's what the property manager would like to use. And then we're going to actually install a yard sign as well. And we take pictures to really document everything that we do there. And then we'll take it a step further. We'll get the marketing description written, and then we'll get it listed online. And we do that entire process in an average about 48 hours.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, that's very cool. So you actually have people come out, swarm of people, and they get all the stuff done, writing the description,
Right.
getting it listed, doing all the stuff. Okay.
Yeah. And that's
cool.
where our that's where our background at Favor obviously comes into play, is that I think if you think about Favor, there's a great consumer experience where the customer can order food, but then there's all these boots on the ground that actually go get the food and make sure that all happens in a timely manner. Leasing is similar in the sense that you need to have a great consumer experience for the renter to be able to see what they're shopping for and do the things they need to do to see if they want to lease that property. But then you're going to need boots on the ground to actually handle the listing side of things. So yeah.
Very cool. So is this totally Uber-like in that you're just pulling anybody in, or I'm sure you have criteria for like the photographers and for all these different people that you're bringing in to do these little pieces?
Yeah, right. Yeah, we don't just hire any random person. I'd say it's definitely not Uber-like in that sense. I think we use it's technology enabled so that we can do those things quickly and can measure how fast we do them, right? I mean, I think just the fact that we know we get those properties set up in an average of 48 hours, I think is more than your average property manager would know. But we know that because the tasks we're doing are tech enabled. But no, we care a lot about those people that we choose, and we try to find folks that have a lot of experience with real estate photography, and then we teach them the other aspects of what we're trying to get done at that property. So
awesome. Yeah, very cool. So when a property is going to become vacant, are they able to leverage the system, or does it have to be totally empty and rent ready and everything else?
no, so yeah, no, they're able to use the system. It sounds like you're asking about pre-leasing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, yes, pre-leasing can be really important, I think, in some markets. So yeah, that's definitely something we support. And if we have to, let's say let's say it's tenant occupied, and we need to act and do an escorted, showing. We have different agents on the ground that we partner with that are some of the most active in the area, touring homes with renters, and so we'll tap into that network to do some showings.
Got it. Okay. Now, what if they want to get the property listed, they want to get photos, but there's a bunch of ugly furniture in there and ugly stuff. Do you guys leverage
Yeah.
maybe Box Brownie I've had on the show before, or digital editors, and they're like removing all this stuff, make the photos?
We do have digital editing in that regard, but I mean, depending on the degree of how much that home is messed up, that's also something that we do, is that we'll if we go out to a home and we think it's not show ready, we'll document that and share it back with the property manager. And I think we've seen property managers really love that aspect of what we do, because oftentimes they have a tough time holding the make ready folks accountable, or let's say they're doing a renovation on the property. In particular, I can't tell you how many times that a property manager said, "Oh yeah, this was supposed to be done," and then when we went out there and actually, we were able to collect evidence that it wasn't, right.
Right.
And so that's also part of our system, is that if the home is not actually ready to be marketed, and then we're gonna gather that information, share it back with the property manager, and then essentially remind them until that's resolved. And as soon as it's resolved, then we can make the listing active. But it's a pretty valuable system and checks and balances that we have in place there.
Got it. So you'll communicate with them, then the property manager can send out maintenance, get things taken care of, dealt with, and then report back to you. And you're checking in with them. Hey, is this ready yet? Is this ready yet? And then they're like, we got it ready. And then you can
Exactly.
proceed. So, all right.
Exactly.
So you've sent out the people, you've got the photos, you got like the, maybe a lockbox on it, you got the yard sign, you've got the description, it's posted online, it's probably pushed out to multiple channels, you
That's right.
know. Then next come the showings, right? And
Yeah.
scheduling and all this. So how does that work? And are you doing one-off showings? Are you doing open house model? What would be found to be the most efficient? What comes next?
Yeah. Yeah. So what we do is we usually set these property up with a self showing system, and then renters are able to go tour the properties 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And
Got it.
we also have a support team available those same hours, so 84 hours a week. We're ready to quickly text back any renters or answer any phone calls if folks are having a tough time actually accessing the home for any particular reason. Our system is really good. I'd say renters have a really good experience touring homes. But like any system, we're dealing with real world stuff, right? Sometimes maybe it could be a really humid day, and maybe the door frame swells a bit or something, right? So maybe the door gets a
Mm.
little stuck. So the renter needs a little help to understand how to get in. Those are all things that I think us, having a support team there available to talk to them and actually pick up the phone, I think is a really important thing. So that's, just one of the many ways that we support tours. But I'd say one of the most important pieces of tours is actually collecting that tour feedback and sharing it with the owner after the fact. And so we have a really great system in place for that as well, where a lot of renters will leave feedback just right within the place that they tour. And then we're actually able to take that feedback and then display it on a web page, where then the property manager is able to share that web page directly with their owner, so they can actually watch the tours that are coming in and the tour feedback in real time. And we white label that for them. So you can imagine, as a property manager, you just share this white label page with your logo, and the owner is able to get a bird's eye view of how their home is performing on the market.
Got it. So could this be a scenario that the owner, like, I don't need to do this, and like the property manager, like, you need to do this. Like, it will get you more rent. People will have an issue with this place if you don't fix this or change this. And the owner's like, no, no, no. And then they look at the page. Here's the white label page. It's got our brand, our logo, XYZ Property Management, and it
Yep.
says, like, consistently feedback, like the floor is too gross, or whatever.
I
Like,
would,
it needs to be
yeah,
replaced.
I would rent this home, but like, does it come with a fridge? Right. Just one way I've seen owners trying to cut some costs is like not putting refrigerators in the home. Right.
Right.
And so, then they see, 3 out of the 5 renters that tour the home mentioned, like, hey, there's no fridge.
No
Uh,
fridge. You have to buy a
right.
fridge. I'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. And so, that page really, really helps the property manager, make their case to the owner, and also show to them, like, hey, we really are showing this property, and this really is what the renters are saying.
Cool. So, yeah, that's really cool. I like the feedback loop. So then, um, what's kind of the next steps? You're doing showings, you're doing tours. Then I guess people are being pushed to apply when they're doing
Yeah.
these tours by the system.
So we have, right. So we have a system both to pre-qualify renters and to actually have them apply. Um, as soon as they apply, we're able to display those applications to the property manager, and we use the same page that we use to display tour feedback, and also tracking the tours and the leads and everything. We use that same
Mhm.
page then to actually show the applications to the property managers and to their owners, because I know every property manager seems to have a different deal with each owner, right? Some of them, they want to run the application past their owner beforehand, or sometimes they're just the ones reviewing it. But either way, we display that information there so that both the property manager and the owner are able to review the application before they decide to approve or deny it.
Got it. So would they can either show this white label page that has the list of all the applicants, or could they just say, here's the one we recommend, and show that person's information?
Yeah. Yeah, it's usually the latter, right? Because it's trying to make it simpler. Yeah, it's usually just showing the one that they recommend. And at that point, we would have already done all of the vetting for that application, right? Even the manual steps of, doing a verification of rental history, for example, or a verification of employment. So, and we've actually seen just our application processing service. We've seen that to be so popular that we actually broke that out as something that a property manager could partner with us just on application processing if they want. And that's also cool because we have a lot of tech to sort of catch fraudulent renters. I'm sure you've probably heard about how fraud is on the rise, especially with us sort of entering a recession. And so, I think it's just more likely that renters are going to try to fake pay stubs. Even some go as far as trying to fake their identity in different ways to try to get approved for a home that they, really are beyond their means. And so we've invested a lot into our application processing system, doing things like being able to get their pay stubs directly from their payroll provider instead of having a way for them to upload their pay stubs, which could be photoshopped or something like that.
Yeah.
And then let's say a renter doesn't even have a job, or let's say a renter is a self-employed or something. We have a way of actually pulling bank statements directly from their bank instead of just receiving those bank statements and getting it uploaded. So all that tech helps to really reduce the amount of fraud, and as for property managers as well, it's less work to actually investigate all those documents.
That's just technology and stuff a property manager can't do directly.
Right.
They don't have the ability to pull directly from the bank their pay stubs. And it's not going to say, here, let me give you my login to my bank account, and to pull directly from the employer. They don't usually have that ability really effectively either. Right? There needs to be technology involved in that.
Yeah. So
what about part of the application? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we recognize that. And so, most of what we've been talking about here is called our full service leasing, right? Where we actually become the leasing arm. But let's say, you've got leasing agents on your team and you think they're rock stars, you're happy with what's going on with your leasing. We could plug in and just do the application processing. We call that service, sunscreen is what we call it. The idea is, the quirky tagline that I came up with is don't get burned by bad renters. So
I like it. A little bit of sunscreen. SPF 1000. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so so one of the questions I think some people will be asking is, what about pets? It's like a whole nother beast out in pets and wanting pets and having pets and all this kind of stuff. Property managers tend to do best if they just convince owners to do pets. You're going to get more tenants. You're going to get more money. How do you deal with the pet side of things?
Yeah, so I'm at this point, I'm sure most property managers have heard of petscreening.com. I think they're a great company. And so we actually integrate their data into our system. So if you're already signed up for petscreening.com, you can provide the petscreening.com login, and then we're able to pull that information into the application packet. So it's something that the owner and the property manager can consider, as a part of the overall application. And, obviously petscreening.com does a really good job verifying things like, are emotional support animal documentation. Is that legit, right? There's fraud around ESA documents. And, that's just one of the pieces they do. But yeah, I mean, that's something that we recommend whenever anyone is accepting pets.
Yeah, very cool. I like petscreening.com. I've had them on the show. I had another company that may be interesting to integrate with too on the show called ourpetpolicy.com. And they kind of take things a step further in the protection. It's more on the protection side of things after the screening. So they go a step beyond. So that might be interesting for you to take a look at integrating with as well.
Yeah,
ourpetpolicy.com. They seem like a good group of people over there. So as well. So,
cool.
So you real quick going back, you had mentioned Appfolio Buildium. Do you integrate with Rent Manager? Do you integrate with I don't know, there's some other ones already and some of these different tools that people are using?
Yeah, great question. So it's actually pretty easy for us to get key information plugged into these softwares. And the reason is because, when someone partners with us, if you think about it, we really need to touch that property management software right when the home's coming up for lease, right? It needs to be listed. And then once the home gets leased, that's when that information needs to get back in the property management software again. So usually the way that our structure is, it doesn't really matter too much which property management software you're using. The system would be the same, where you would essentially create a user for us. And then once the home is getting leased, we know who's signing the lease. We're going to get their information set up within whatever property management software you use, and make sure that it's set up for ongoing rent payments and things like that. So, it essentially, it's like, you're using a property management software, but then you're going to use Sunroom for leasing. But then once the home gets leased, it's going to be as if you had leased it through those other systems. And so, it's sort of seamless in that way.
Yeah, very cool. So you're PM software agnostic.
Exactly. Yes, that's a much more succinct way of saying it. Thanks.
So it just means I've been doing this probably a long time. All right, so we've got, so you mentioned your solution. You've got the sunscreen that can be pulled out just separately. They do or if they're using the full leasing service, you've done the pre-qualification. You've got the applicant. They can send over the white label thing to the owner if the owner's like, I really need to see what info you got, and you've tested out their pay stubs and their bank stuff, and you maybe connected to petscreening.com and they got the pet things sorted out. What happens next? You've got a good applicant.
Yes. Yeah. So the property manager, the owner, accepts the application. And at that point, we're going to prompt, we're going to reach out to the renter, say, congrats, you've been accepted. Please now pay the security deposit. And as soon as they pay security deposit, then the owner or the property manager is able to connect their bank account, and that money will just automatically get deposited in whatever account that you specify. And then from a lease perspective, from the beginning of the process, we would have asked that you provide the preferred lease that you would like for us to use. We're going to get that lease drafted up, and we're going to send it over to both the renter and the property manager. For some property managers, they like to review it one last time before it gets sent to the renter, so we can fulfill that ask. And then the lease is going to get signed. And as soon as the lease gets signed, we will then dispatch our people back out to the property, do one final walkthrough, and also, remove our yard sign and remove, any other things that we had, any lock boxes or things like that got set up. But we do one thing where we'll leave a combo lockbox out at the property so that we can facilitate the renter actually moving in. So that's really the final and last step. for our system is facilitating to the renter actually getting the keys so that they have a smooth move in. And then the last step after all of that is we're going to survey the renter and make sure they had a great experience through the whole leasing process.
So, and what's before we move on, because I'm curious, like what difference you're noticing with these surveys. But let's say they don't accept somebody. What's sort of the process? What happens to the rejects, so to speak, the tenants that didn't pass muster? Because a lot of times they're following up and bugging the property manager. Hey, did you accept me? Like, what's going on? This sort of thing. What do you do with them?
Yeah. So first of all, I mean, we shield the property manager from having to deal with all of that stuff. And I think for the position we're in, if that renter, I mean, I think the natural thing is, I think we would do what any other good property manager would do, right? We'd see if there's any other listings within that property manager that the renter would qualify for, right? That first and foremost, we're going to recommend that of like, hey, there are these other listings for this same property manager. Do you like that? And, if the renter is not interested in any of those homes, then I think we would look broader to other listings that are amongst our partners and say, hey, renter, maybe it would be better if you lease this property.
Yeah, that takes a lot of load off and helps to get the other properties filled. That's great.
Yeah,
okay,
and the renter is really happy too, because they don't have to pay an application fee again, so they're able to reuse their application.
Yeah. Nice. So now, what if you have two property managers in the same market and you can applicate for one? Are they completely segregated from being able to apply to the other, or if they're in the Sunroom system, they can?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so I mean, we don't want to restrict where renters can apply, right? Because that just doesn't make sense. But we have come across a scenario. It's been rare where renters have applied to multiple properties. And so what's really cool about our system is that we have a little disclaimer for the property manager where they can see, hey, this renter's actually applied for multiple properties. And that way it's kind of clear to them of like, hey, look, this renter is serious about your property, but they're hedging their bets, which, I mean, that's a common scenario, especially in a hot market, right? Is, if property managers are collecting multiple applicants on a single property, well, you can bet that the renters they know that. And so they're also applying to multiple properties. So, I mean, I think we do our best to try to mitigate those scenarios. And I think one of the best ways to mitigate those scenarios is really just processing applications quickly and working to get the renter an answer quickly around if they're accepted or denied. And in most cases, I think renters are willing to tell you which one's their first choice. So if you're able to process the application really quickly and drive it to decision, it doesn't happen too often where the owner comes back and wants to accept the renter and they've already decided to go somewhere else. I mean, it does occasionally, but we try to mitigate that.
Got it. Okay, cool. So going back to the other path, I'm actually drawing this all out. I've got like a flow chart going on here.
Yeah, it's good.
Keep track. So you survey the renter at the end, like you've got somebody in the property that they've got a lockbox there. I think that's very cool. They can just go and can I move on this day? Like, yep, we've got here's a lockbox. You've got a code or however it works, and they can go get in. Yeah. And you don't have to show up. They can be there with their U-Haul when they need to be there. And that's super annoying, I think, for property managers sometimes. And then afterwards you survey the renter. So I'm curious about the results of this. What's been the shift that people have noticed in the experience? I mean, this is why you started this in the beginning. You weren't having a great experience. Some people probably were like, drive over to our office and we might give you a key. Some people are like, we can meet you maybe this day. It was like a mess. So what sort of feedback are you seeing on these surveys, and what sort of shift are property management companies that are working with noticing with your process versus trying to do this on their own?
Yeah, great question. Well, we collect I consider a very important metric, and I'm curious if it's come up before on this podcast. Is something called a net promoter score.
Huh?
Yeah, have you sort of discussed that before? I'm happy to
We don't really
talk more
focus
about it,
on
but
that on the podcast, um, but yeah, I think a lot of people are familiar. So net promoter score is when it says on a scale of maybe 0 to 10 or 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this company? So a lot of people see this the quick survey on software, different things like this.
yeah, that's
So
right. And so when the net promoter score rank actually comes out, the scale is actually a minus 100 to a plus 100.
mhm,
And you could Google about how that works, but you're right. Like as a renter, what we would be asking them is, you know, how likely are you to lease from, or how likely are you to recommend leasing a property to a friend through Sunroom or through, X property management company?
right.
And what what we found is, I mean, we just have a really good net promoter score. So if you could Google this around, but the average net promoter score amongst property managers is a 7. And that's not on the 0 to 10 scale. That's on the minus 100 to the plus 100 scale. And for the renters who lease a property through us, we have a 52 net promoter score. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, so it's really, it's like kind of what I said at the very beginning. These renters are just a lot happier when they get in the home.
Mhm.
For the property managers, they're seeing less really noisy renters when they first move in. I think that's a common thing that property managers are used to, is that when a renter first moves in, that can be when they're the most, they really are talking the most, or they're the noisiest. And so I think just anecdotally, property managers have said that, hey, these renters are just happier. They're just not causing as much commotion when they first move in. And some of that has to do with our process too, right? I mean, allowing renters to even self-tour homes, it really, it's kind of a no pressure thing where they're able to really understand what they're buying before they move in. So believe that helps as well. Uh,
Mm.
yeah.
So this is the nerd in me coming out. So there's this really good book called Innovating Analytics,
Hmm.
and um, and they put out this idea of basically the idea of the next generation of net promoter. They're like, they have used a lot of data to showcase, and it's a little dry, but there's a lot of data to showcase the fundamental flaws of net promoter score, which has advantages over doing nothing, right? But then they talk
Hmm.
about a new sort of score, which is the word of mouth index.
Hmm.
And so we've incorporated that a bit into our business, because I think it basically asks a second question: how likely are you to discourage others from utilizing that? Because what they found, just because somebody is not a true promoter, as they categorize them on the high end, like they choose like maybe a 7, 8, or 9 or something, does not mean they're actually going to go hurt your business. And so a lot of big companies, they found, were spending a lot of money to try and mitigate the people and pay attention to the people and help the people they thought were detractors or people that would hurt their business, when most of them really wouldn't. Just
Hmm.
because they choose a 2 or a 3, they found that that does not necessarily mean they're actually going to go actively try and destroy your business or hurt you. They just aren't going to tell people about it, because some people just don't want to talk about other businesses, right?
Hmm.
So then asking that secondary question, how likely are you to like tell others not to use this business or whatever? Then it gives you the true people to focus on mitigating or solving challenges for. So
Huh.
really interesting idea, but then the problem, they talk about the challenge of mainlining, where if they answer one question one way, first question, they'll answer it the same way, but it's backwards,
Hmm.
because they're just in the mode of answering questions like a zombie, and they'll do it the wrong way or read it the wrong way. So we've even seen this. So you have to like put some questions in between. And so it just complicates it, but it's a really interesting book.
Hmm.
You and I can geek out sometime and show you how I sort of built this out so that it would work effectively. But it helps us identify which people aren't actually detractors that we need to like take care of and focus on, and which people they never rate anything positively, and they're quiet, which is
Huh.
fine. So
Oh, that's
yes,
that's fascinating. I'll have to check that out.
I know it's pretty nerdy. So, Innovating Analytics is by Larry Freed, Freed, which is an interesting book. So, cool. Well, what else we've asked a lot of questions. You've explained the process. I think we've covered how it works, unless we missed anything. What else do property managers coming to you? What other concerns or things could we address here on the podcast before we wrap? That they might have, or what are the big FAQ questions that they ask before they're willing to explore giving up leasing arm of their business?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the questions just evolve around how they can still control the process.
Mm,
And so, I mean, we've invested an incredible amount into giving them those controls, right? Like, I think the key is the way we look at it is, look, like, we're going to be the best at doing this leasing legwork. It's all we do. And we've built technology to really hold ourselves accountable to really, really high standards. But at the end of the day, like, we still want you to have control over, who's the right tenant for this property, or how would you like the that application process to go, for example. And so, I think we've worked hard to streamline the areas, and that, we just realized, hey, this is the best way to do this. But also we recognize that, hey, these property managers, they have pride of process for a reason, right? For their particular market, that might be the right thing to do. And so we've invested a lot in creating different settings and things like that can make it so that they like to, they get to use it the way they would like to.
cool. So it's really a lot of the big concerns are just about the flexibility. Do I have to go all in and use everything that you offer? Or
Right.
can I do, some of this, and maybe I'll give up pieces later, and because
Right.
some of y'all entrepreneurs are control freaks. Like, let's be real.
Yes.
And you need
Yes.
to let go of some of this stuff and let somebody else do it a little bit better. But we have a lot of egos, entrepreneurs. We think our way is the best way all the time, until we
Right.
see that, and
Yeah.
maybe somebody else can do this better.
Yeah.
So,
But
from your experience, what do you see is I'm guessing you're going to say, but Sunroom probably does it better than what most property managers are doing. Better NPS scores.
Yeah. Well, I would just say that, some of the property managers that we've seen are the most excited to partner with us are definitely probably the ones listening to your podcast, or it's the ones that want to grow. And we have some great examples of that, right? I mean, there's one property manager that we started working with in Austin a couple of years ago, and they started with 300 doors, and now I believe they're up to 800 doors.
Awesome.
And so by them being able to just focus on other things, they were able to grow pretty quickly. And because we recognize this, and we're starting to set up in these new markets, we actually just this week launched a new program specifically for trying to find these property management companies that are really focused on growth. And so we actually launched this new growth program that we just put on our website, where property managers can apply for the program. And essentially, this program, if we accept them, we'll actually give them, and they partner with us, we'll give them $10,000 to grow their business. And they could use that money or I'd say up to 10,000, and they can use that money for helping them grow. And really, the only terms of it is that you're willing to partner with us on leasing to do that. And so we have a bunch of different, we have different ideas of really how to use that money to grow. But I know a lot of entrepreneurs already have those ideas, and so that's why we set up this new program.
Awesome. Well, we should check, 'cause we're really good at grow company, and yeah, so that I think there would be a good there. So we'll chat later. We've also negotiated with most of the top vendors, where we've got a hit list, but a lot of the top vendors we're negotiating best in class discounts just for our mastermind members.
There you go.
So maybe that's something you and I can do with Sunroom as well. So
Yeah,
if you're open,
definitely. Yeah.
cool. So we've got some big players on board already for some of these things, but I think it'd be really cool to see this is something new, and I think it's innovative and it seems really exciting. So we'll chat afterwards. So cool. Is there anything else you want people to know before we go? And if the last thing maybe is how do they find you, and how do they get in touch, and how do they start working with Sunroom?
Yeah, yeah. Just go to our website, sunroomleasing.com. Fill out a little form. Be happy to have someone from our sales team reach out and have a conversation and kind of explain more of these details about what we do. I'm an engineer at heart, so I don't know if I think for some people maybe I went into too much detail. But at the same, knowing I've talked to a lot of property managers, they love the details. So if you want if you want even more details, go to our website, sunroomleasing.com, reach out to us, and someone from our sales team would love to dig into those details with you.
Perfect. I think the last big question everybody I have is going to be, what does it cost? Is this affordable? Can we do this? That sort of question. So
yeah,
anything to say about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're going to charge, similar to what I would say like other leasing agents would. So we're going to charge like a percentage of first month's rent. That percentage of first month's rent that we charge, it's going to be different depending on the market and depending on what kind of volume that you have. Normally the way we're setting this up is that, let's say we usually make it so that the property manager can still make good money on leasing while still utilizing us for all of it. So, property managers can, they charge a percentage of first month's rent to their owners. And that could be different by market. We're usually going to charge, call it 10, 20% less than that, so that they're able to still make money on the leasing, but still know that they have a best in class service for that happening. And so that's just for full service. For sunscreen, that's actually free for property managers to use, and we just charge the renter an application fee. And so that's really kind of the easiest way. If we said a lot of stuff today and people are like, wow, like, that's a little scary to adopt that big of a, have a company owning leasing, a great way to start to just build a relationship with us and start seeing what we could do would be to start utilizing our application processing system, which, really it's going to be a really low risk thing. Even if you want to test out having us run an app, do one application on one listing or something, we'd be happy to do that. So
that's the gateway drug. A little bit of sunscreen, and then you'll be like, I want a whole room. I want the sunroom now.
There you go.
I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm tired of putting the sunscreen on. Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Ben, it's been great having you on the show. Check out sunroomleasing.com. And then if you come up with some major developments or big shifts or changes, we'd love to have you back on the show. So thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Jason. And we'll have to meet up in Austin sometime.
We'll get together.
Neighbors.
All right. Cool. Thanks, Ben. All right. Bye-bye. All right. So, everybody, if you've been listening to this, we appreciate you listening to our podcast. We would really appreciate it if you left us a review in exchange. If you got value from this, that would mean a lot to us at DoorGrow and my team. We have been innovating and creating a lot of new stuff at DoorGrow. We've got some really cool stuff coming out. So if you have not been familiar with DoorGrow for a while, we've got some really cool things coming down that we are working on. You should get connected to do a sales call. Check us out at doorgrow.com. Reach out to us. You can reach out to us on any social media. And we would love to connect with you and share with you. We just released the DoorGrow code, which is the first roadmap that really showcases how to go from 0 to 1,000 doors in as short of time period as possible. It shows you which things you need to do at which stage, at which door levels, and what questions you have, what major problems you have at each stage, and what you need to do in order to do things in the right order to get to the next level. So if you've been at a similar door count for the last year, or maybe 2 years, or 3 years, maybe even feeling kind of stuck, or maybe even backsliding a little bit because of property selling off, or whatever. We have clients that are adding a lot of doors. Andrew Rocha just chimed in on one of our mastermind calls. He's one of our clients. He added like 50 doors in the last month. We've got clients, one of our clients added 310 doors in a year. We've got another client that added 100 and gosh, they've like doubled their doors. Like we've got clients that are growing really, really rapidly, and they're not spending any money on advertising. I want you to be clear, like our methods are not focused on SEO, pay-per-click, content marketing, pay-per-lead services, social media marketing. Our methods are what really work in the marketplace. And most of them are zero cost, like they cost nothing. It just costs time and effort, and it actually takes less time and less effort than doing cold lead marketing like SEO, pay-per-click, content marketing, social media marketing, or pay-per-lead services that exist in the property management space. So I highly recommend you check this out if you're wanting to grow. And we are now helping really significantly. We've built out the best systems and processes, and we've been stacking the best coaches in the industry. If you've heard of certain coaches in the industry coaching, we might have them on as experts in our program. We'll be announcing more of that later, but we've got some of the best in the industry that we've brought on as coaches. So it's not the Jason show. I've got an amazing team of people coaching, and we have systems for operations. We have systems for process. We have systems for sales, and our clients are crushing it. Nobody in the marketplace is doing all that DoorGrow is doing or can compete with us. And so if you think you know DoorGrow and you've looked at us or judged us in the past, it might be time to take a new look, because your competitors might be working with us, or they might work with us, and you're going to wish that it had been you. So until next time, to our mutual growth. Bye, everyone.